introduce yourself and tell me a little bit more about where you were born, where you grew up, your childhood.
Okay. Well, my name is Virginia Mireles, and I'm born and raised in good old Tucson, Arizona. I've really never lived anywhere other than Tucson, Phoenix for a couple years, but I'm the second of four children. My older brother was senselessly murdered in 2000, and today's his birthday. Oh, I woke up just thinking about him. Yeah, it's my big brother. And I have two younger siblings, a brother and a sister. We're all very, very close, especially because, we lost our mother in 2012. She went home to Jesus. And my sister lives in Vegas. My little brother lives here, though. And if I don't talk to him 5 times a day, it's a rare thing.
Tell me a little bit about your brother's murder. How old were you?
So it was in 2000. He was just shy of turning 32 or 33. He was murdered it was Mother's Day, 2000 at the old Sagebrush Cantina. And it turns out that it was, a gang initiation, and my brother was attacked at closing time, and it was terrible. It was the hardest thing to see my mother go through that. It was devastating. And yeah, it's been 24 years. I just woke up, today's his birthday, and I woke up thinking, like, what kind of relationship would we have today? I'm confident that he would be as involved as my little brother is, but gosh, like 24 years, that's a whole life.
Yeah. And at this
Yeah.
time, were you actively involved in the justice system, or how did your
Oh,
brother's murder affect you as a person and just what was going on?
but when my brother passed away, I was heavy into my addiction. And so I don't think I was able to really process it. And I know for sure I wasn't like a resource for my mother during this time. I missed a lot of it. And the day of his wake, I was arrested again for who knows what number time at that point in my life. It was 24 years ago. So I was really heavy into my addiction. And it's only through the gift of recovery and hindsight that I can deal with it now. And I've processed it, but at the time, I can't say that it really impacted me, unfortunately.
It's so hard. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
It's just tragic.
hmm
So four kids grew up in Tucson.
hmm
What did your parents do?
Well, my mother was a single mother, and she was tasked with raising four children, um, working two jobs. She put herself through nursing school. My mother was very strong-willed, strong-minded, and if anything, she taught me how to be independent and resourceful. But there was a lot of other stuff too, She was a young woman with four children, and she was frustrated and she was tired. And unfortunately, I felt the brunt of many of her frustrations, something I've come to terms with. I don't feel any shame in crying over it, but it's not like I'm harboring anything. It's life. And again, through the beauty of hindsight, and doing my own recovery and healing, I can see that, this poor lady, she had four kids and her hands were too full. And she did what she was raised knowing. And she always said, that we only do what we know, and when we learn better, we do better. And fortunately, um, before she passed, we came together, and we had a wonderful moment, and for that, I'll always be grateful.
I love that for you. It's so hard, and having become a mother myself too, I feel like,
Yeah,
your parents have shortcomings. They do. I was raised by a working mother myself, and I think
yeah.
it's easy for me to be hard on her. And now that I have my own kids, like, you know
It's
what?
different.
She did the
Yeah.
best she could, and
hmm
that doesn't mean that I wasn't negatively impacted, right? In some
Right.
ways, like that's
Mhm.
also part of it, and that's also real. But
Yeah.
I'm so happy you were able to have this moment with your mom where
Oh, yeah.
you just were able to have that conversation and
hmm
that appreciation, that
Yeah.
reflection on maybe all that was good, all that was bad, but
Yeah.
that you were able to talk about it because that's just
Mhm.
such an important thing.
It really is. You
So tell me how old you were when you entered the justice system and kind of what your path was to that.
Well, I entered the justice system very young. I was 16 and I had ran away from home when I was 14 and basically just lived off the fat of the land until I was about 16 and I got arrested for vagrancy. And they realized I was a minor. So, of course, they sent me to juvenile court. I was sent into residential treatment at the Amity Foundation, still alive and running today, saving souls as we speak. And, it didn't do much good because as soon as I was 18, of course, I was released from all my judicial requirements because I'm now an adult. And I immediately went back to South Tucson in spite of having been sober for probably like a year and a half at this point. Turned 18 and went right back to what I know and continued the revolving door of, incarceration, maybe residential treatment. I've attended 7 residential treatments here in Tucson, graduated from them all, but it never stuck. It was in my head, but not in my heart. And I think that it's through, experience and learning, that's a really long distance. It's a long way from your head to your heart, to figure out that, like, I know it in my head, I know, but my heart just would not accept it. My addiction would not accept it. I,
So hard, and it is so hard.
yeah.
As I've helped people over
Hmm.
the years as a public defender and watching people
Yeah.
cycle, you can't do anything to help someone that's not ready to
No,
help themselves, and that can
no.
be so hard and frustrating for
Yeah.
someone who deeply just
Yeah.
wants them to be well, who wants a better life for them.
Hmm.
But it's got to be up to the individual. So, what was the turning point for you?
Well, the turning point was, 2013, April 2nd, 2013, I'm arrested and I'm charged with second-degree burglary, which is a class 2 felony. Mind you, murder is a class 1 for stealing $27 off of my neighbor's counter. But because of my history, I'm a dangerous person because I stole $27 and I was sentenced to 6.5 years. And I'll tell you, Noella, what really opened my eyes is the day of sentencing, Judge Fowl. I was handcuffed to a girl who was her first time in trouble. Noella, vehicular manslaughter. And this girl got 4.5 years. And I thought to myself, vehicular 4.5 years? Dude, I'm going to skate. I'll be out of here. And no, to my shock, I was sentenced to 6.5 years for $27, and I was made to pay restitution. $27 I had to pay back. They took it off my whip, $4 every whip. That's a prison paycheck. $4 took me like just a couple months to pay it off.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I knew, Noella, I knew at that point, like I was already 38. And I knew at that point, 6.5 years later, like I'm gonna be well into my 40s. And either I change it now, or like I just need to resign myself to like always being a drug addict. And like this is just gonna be my life, and I gotta resign myself to it. And thankfully, it changed my life.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so, well, yeah, what a shock. And over
Mhm.
$27. That's just insane that that can even happen in our criminal
Yeah.
justice system and
Yeah.
just reveals all kinds of problems.
I
But
was I was really bitter about that for about my first 4 months of incarceration, and it was when I realized, I say Jesus spoke to me because I know he did, and he told me it's not the amount that I took, like it wasn't mine to take. And that's why I was being punished because it wasn't mine to take. And I was so like nonchalant about stealing things, a lipstick, a candy. I was so nonchalant about like that's poor moral character. And he told me, and that really did help. Yeah, so that's really what helped me flip the switch and like, okay, like I'm gonna change my life or I'm just gonna be bitter. What am I gonna be? I
yeah,
have the most grateful heart ever.
I love that. Your heart is so grateful
It
and so
is.
big. And so
Yeah.
you were in Perryville. Arizona has one women's
Hmm.
facility for the state.
Yep.
And it sounds
Mhm.
like the first 4 months were rocky, wrestling with, feeling angry about being there.
Yeah.
Were you able to then access programming, or what did you do with the rest of your time at Perryville? Talk to me about your incarceration.
Well, um, I worked for the motor vehicle MVD, Division of Motor Vehicle or whatever it's called, as a level 1 operator. For the first 6 months, I was incarcerated. And then I was moved to another yard where they have a program called Televerde. It's a for-profit company that operates inside of the Arizona State Prison, not just in Arizona, but in Florida and Indiana. We have, we're even inside Her Majesty's prison in England. I'm
Wow, I
telling you,
didn't know that.
Tele Televerde is business with a purpose. And when I got hired with them a year into my incarceration, I'd always known of Televerde because it was my fifth time going to prison, and lots of people that I knew worked there. And I know that it's like a challenging job. Like it's a job. It's a sales and marketing company, and they are for profit. So like it's not anybody just giving you a pass. And I thought to myself, like if I could really learn something, because I've never really had like a real job ever my whole life till I was 38 and I found Televerde, and I had a knack for it. Like I did. I was good at connecting with people, setting appointments, selling the product. It was just easy for me. And about 9 months later, one of the supervisors asked if I would consider applying for the call center trainer because, as he said, we need to make more of you. And I promise, Ella, like at the moment that like he said that and I could see like he meant it, I was like, maybe I can, like maybe I do make a difference. Maybe I do have potential. I ain't looked back since.
I love that. Such a big thing to be able to
Yeah.
work with somebody who sees your potential and is confident in your abilities before you develop that confidence yourself.
And like you're wearing orange, Noella. Like you're wearing orange and you're incarcerated and everybody else calls you Mireles. And this guy says, Miss Mireles, I think you should apply for this. And so I did get the promotion, and I would train our global call centers in Argentina because I speak Spanish. So I would train them in language. And I used to always tell the girls on the yard, I'd be like, I travel the world right from my seat.
Love that. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
congratulations to you on
Yeah.
your success. So you
Yeah.
found Verde.
Uh-huh.
And when I
Oh.
have traveled to Arizona, I
Mhm.
had an opportunity to visit with some of the women in that
Uh,
program there at Perryville.
Nice.
It was so different. I
Yeah.
also went to the prison, and it is just
Yeah.
kind of different community and seeing
Mhm.
people at computers, like it looked like a workplace.
It
And
is.
it was really
Yeah.
inspiring to me to see
Mhm.
just the freedom, the independence, the
Yeah.
trust, the just commitment to
Mhm.
giving people a real work experience inside of a prison, which I think in this country, unfortunately, is so rare.
It's like it's just a corporate company, and you really do learn marketing and sales skills. But honestly, the biggest thing that I learned was that I'd been selling myself short for a whole long time. And you also mentioned prison programs or what was available. And I'll tell you that when I was incarcerated, 2013 to 2018, there was nothing. By the time I got it accepted to a program, I had too little time left, so I wasn't qualified. At first, I had too much time. By the time my name came up for the program, I had too little time. So other than going to the library and checking out every self-help book I could, Noella, I read adult. My parents were never married, but I figured these people have got to have something, a thought that maybe I could run with. And so I just read self-help books. I attended NA and AA, and like there's a lot of women in prison, especially those who work for Televerde, that are, we're driven to change our lives. And that's what our conversations surround, even inside those fences. It's a beautiful thing.
I love that. And such support for each other, it seems like in that
Yeah.
program, which is
Hmm.
amazing. So then you're released from Perryville eventually. Do you remember
Hmm.
your release date? How did it feel to be released? And just what went through your mind on that day?
I was released May 14th, 2018. And luckily, you can transition to the corporate office. It's not available for every single person because, Televerde is just one company, but I was blessed enough to secure a position as the corporate trainer before my release, and when you're released, they give you 2 weeks and then you get back to work. So that was instrumental in my success story, because I knew that I had that routine to go back to. But I'll tell you, I was really, really nervous, Noella, because I'd been released from prison before. It was my fifth time. And multiple times I had been released, like I really wanted to change my life. I really wanted to like do something different, but I honestly didn't know how. And so the first hiccup that I would face would send me running back to South Tucson and the drugs that I'd always known. But it was so this time I was just really nervous that like everything I said I was gonna do, I wouldn't. That the old me would show up, that I really hadn't done any changing, that like it was all just pretend and I was gonna be the same person. And I'm not.
And what
I'm
was
not.
different this time? Where did you find the strength, the resilience?
Well, it was everything, right? It was being incarcerated and losing my mother. It was in 2012. I had just been released. She passed away 6 weeks later. 7 months later, I'm back in prison. So I was doing time without her. I was, like I mentioned, I was already 38 and I was 6.5 years. And I was like, okay, something has to change. It was every little piece along the way that added up to what I experienced today. It wasn't like okay, this is it. It was, I passed that first test at Tel Verde and I was like, oh, maybe I can. And then the next thing happened and the next thing. And like, it was just everything. And there's a couple that I met in prison. Well, I met the man first. His name is Don Rayburn, and their whole life, they've been married 64 years. Their whole life has been about showing Jesus's love. And I was blessed enough to have this man write me and ask me randomly, I don't know him, if I wanted a visit. I don't know how I got, I do know. I do know how I was chosen. That was Jesus. And he came to see me faithfully 3.5 years, didn't know me every Saturday, food visit. And he showed me that it's a personal relationship, and that I, Virginia Mireles, just because I am Virginia Mireles, was worthy of love. And not to be like ridiculous, but I'd never really known that. I feel like I was thrown away when I was a little kid, and I was like nobody fought for me. When I was 14, nobody looked on the streets for me. If my granddaughter would run away, I wouldn't sleep until I found her. And I wonder, why didn't anybody do that for me? But I do it for myself now.
So hard. Must be such just a lonely, terrible feeling as a kid to just
Oh, it was
feel
terrible.
years. Yeah. Oh, so heartbreaking.
Hmm. But I
Uh,
take care of her now, let me tell you. Oh, my inner child is well in hand. I'll take care of her today. Yeah, she's done some healing. She's got more to go, but she's done some healing.
I love that. Um, as you were released from prison, talk to me about the barriers created by your criminal record. I mean, luckily,
Yeah.
you had this job with Televerde,
Yeah.
but with housing, with other things you tried to do, talk
Mhm.
about some of the practical barriers or emotional barriers you experienced.
Well, Noella, I'm gonna be like an odd case because everything just fell into place. Like the first apartment I got, when I talked to the guy, I told him my backstory. I have found that being honest and upfront with people has really paid off for me. The very first guy who rented to me, he said, "Look, Virginia, your past doesn't concern me. Are you gonna pay my rent?" That's all he cared about. And each subsequent place has been that easy for me. But I do know that there are tons of barriers. I know that I was blessed to come home with a job, that housing was easy for me. And honestly, when you work at Televerde, they save money. I came home with a nice little nest egg to get my life started. But not everybody has it that easy because people won't look past what you did yesterday. But if we all did that, like, is everybody confident that if we looked at their yesterday, they'd be okay? I don't think we are. So I think we should extend that grace to everybody. Everybody should have as easy a time transitioning as I did, honestly, because we need another chance and everybody does.
Yeah, I love that. And I do think there is a big difference in the ability to save, the ability to be released with
Yeah.
financial security, and that if you can demonstrate that, you're going to have a leg up versus somebody that may be deserving of a second chance, but
Hmm.
people are going to be more worried about, well, how are you going to pay for this? Like, I want to give
Hmm.
you a second chance, but I also need to take care of myself. And that
Yeah.
means people need to pay their rent. And so I
You,
think it's just so important people have that opportunity to
hmm.
work, to save, to be able to have something to draw from to begin their life
Yeah.
in a way that they're set up for success. So,
That's the really big difference maker with Televerde too, Noella. I think that plays a huge piece as well because regardless if I went to Televerde or not, I knew I had marketable skills. And I knew that I could find a career, not just flipping burgers. And I often think that people who don't know think that that's all the kind of job that someone who's been incarcerated is qualified for, and we're not. We don't want to flip burgers. Some of us are qualified, and not to say that every single person is, because that's not true of the world, right? Everybody has a place, but to automatically categorize someone and have a group bias mentality, I think it just hurts everybody.
yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Um, what does the future hold for you? So you're working
Oh,
at Televerde
yeah,
now. What do you want to do long term? Where do you
yeah.
see yourself in 20 years from now?
Oh, okay. Well, I just voted in my first election. I
Yay,
just
that's
voted. I got
amazing.
all my rights back, followed the whole process. I'm in school currently and I'm on track to graduate. So I'll finally earn my associates in general studies. But I've signed on for next semester because I really do want a bachelor's in training and development. I believe that I really do hold a knack for explaining sales concepts simply. Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. And I know it well enough. Like I know I do.
Leave that with my
Yeah.
whole heart.
Yeah. So what I really want to do is be either the training and development director at Televerde, or I mean, we'll just shoot for VP.
I love that. I think the sky's the limit for
Yeah,
you.
me
You should
too.
go all the way.
Yeah,
I
me
love
too.
that. Where are you going to school? University of Arizona or to a community college?
Well, I'll probably transfer to the U of A, but for now I'm at Pima Community College for now.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
really exciting. I love
Super
that for you.
exciting. Yeah,
It's
me
awesome.
too. And I learned math. Who knew? I
Uh,
never knew. I'm taking my teacher an apple on Thursday and I'm going to tell him, like, you taught me math, sir. Like, good
love
job.
that.
Good job.
It's amazing. Talk to me about getting your rights restored.
Oh,
What that
mhm,
process was like for you,
mhm.
how you felt when you were able to achieve that, and then being able to
Mhm.
vote.
Well, I'll tell you that there was this guy in Phoenix running these like workshops, right? And he said it was like in 2021, he was holding these workshops saying that, he could help you get your rights restored, attend his workshop, and he'll take care of everything. That's all you had to do. So I did. Come to find out, that was a big scam. It was in the news and everything. So that also taught me a lesson because I tried to take a shortcut. And shortcuts don't get us anywhere because there's a process and everybody has to follow the process. So I said, okay, Virginia, get off your butt and get this done. And about 4 months later, I got my rights reinstated to vote and to carry a firearm, and I'm super excited about it. I'll tell you too what I didn't know, and the lady at the Superior Court said that I might as well file a motion to dismiss my fees and fines. She's like, you're already at it, you might as well. So I did. They waived all my fines. I owed like $5,000 in past fines. Waived them all.
That's amazing. I
That's
love that.
amazing. I love it. I love it.
I
Noella.
love that.
I love it.
It's amazing.
Hmm.
How did it feel to vote in the election?
Oh, it was awesome. Like just that little sticker, like I participated. Now I can complain if I want to because I participated.
I love
You
that.
can't
I love
complain if you don't
that voting
participate.
sticker.
You got nowhere to come from,
I
in
love
my
that.
opinion.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Noella, life is great even when it isn't, because it's not always like, it's and that is one thing too that like I finally understood and what I really couldn't get my head around every time I would try to get sober, because I mentioned that, I graduated from 7 rehabs here in Tucson. What I could never get my mind around is like, how can people promise for the rest of their life they're never going to do drugs? How can you promise that? I don't know the future. I don't know. But what I finally know is I don't have to know the future. It's today, silly. Just today. That's all, just today. Well, I got today covered.
I love that.
That was my revelation. I was like, oh, you're so dumb, Virginia. Really?
So having a criminal record is very, very common.
Yeah.
1 of 3 Americans have some type of misdemeanor or felony record in the state of Arizona. Over 2 million people have criminal records. Why do you think campaigns like this are important?
Oh, campaigns like this are super important to humanize a very unhuman concept. People want to throw a statistic and like it's a statistic, but there are people behind those statistics. There are real lives that are impacted, and not just the person, but the people that are closest to them. So either, we get to know these people because it's probably your neighbor, it's probably your aunt, it might be your mom. I know my children, it might be your mom. And we're just people. And it's terrible. The founder of Televerde, Jim Hooker, may he rest in peace, he said he built Televerde on the whole premise that it was senseless to throw people away for a mistake they made on their worst day, the worst moment of their lives. I know I'm not, it's to paraphrase, but I believe in that. Like it in any situation, it doesn't matter where you've been, it's where you're going. And in community, that's how we heal. We have to be a community wherever you make your community. That's the only way that we're going to heal and grow, because Noella, it takes a village. Whatever you're trying to do, it takes a village, and we're part of that village. I am part of that village.
I agree, for
Mhm.
sure. What advice would you give to other people who are maybe a little bit earlier in their journey, maybe someone who's still incarcerated or recently released and
Yeah.
struggling? What would you say to that person?
Oh, there are two things that I tell people that call me and reach out for support or that I mentor. And the first thing I always say is don't compare yourself with anybody else, because our journeys are our own. And if I compared myself to those in my circle, I could end up feeling real bad about myself, but it's not a race. Like it's not a race. We're all where we should be right when we should be. And it's a funny segue because the next thing I say is don't should on yourself. Like there's a whole bunch of people going to tell you what you should be doing and where you should be at. Don't shit on yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Love yourself. It took me a long time to really know what that meant. And my mother used to always say, whenever I would tell her, I love you, mama, her inevitable response was always, I need you to love yourself. And now I know what she meant. And now I do.
Where did you find that love?
Through every past version of myself who got me right here, for never giving up when giving up might have been easier, less painful, less emotional.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Um, so you're a mother yourself now.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about your kids, and it sounds like you're now very involved in your grandchildren's life.
Yes.
Just talk to me about motherhood, about being a grandparent, and what that means to you.
Well, Noelle, I'll tell you that my rights were severed to my children. I have 3 children. My son is 33. His name is Alex or Alejandro. My daughter is 32. Her name is Daniela. And my youngest is 24 and her name is Maya. But my rights were severed, and they were my 2 oldest were raised by my aunt, and I really didn't have much of a relationship with them. And my youngest was raised by my mother, so I always had access to her, but I wouldn't say that I was their mother. I gave birth to them. Um, but my life is like I've been sober since April 3rd, 2013. And so life is very different today, and one of the driving forces behind my recovery is I never want to be that careless again, Noella. Like I never want, like I walked out on my children. And that thought is what kept me mired in my drug addiction for so, so long. but I forgive myself now. And that's the exact same thought that inspires my recovery because I never want to be that careless again. I want to value every single moment and every single opportunity that I get to be involved in someone's life. And that's why I have my grandbabies. I'm adopting my granddaughter. And I'm so grateful that I'm in a position that, like, the court deems me responsible. What? Let's go.
I love that. How old is your grandbaby?
She's 15. The
Oh,
little one, he's only 5. Yeah.
amazing for you to be
Yeah.
involved in their lives.
Yeah.
Um, who are your mentors or who were your people as you think about your journey? I mean, you mentioned that um, gentleman who would visit you
Mhm.
from the church. Who else,
Mhm.
as you think about your journey, inspired you, helped you, was a mentor to you?
Well, I would definitely say when I was a juvenile, way back at Amity, her name is Terry Maloney, and she's still like she's the CEO or something like that of Amity now. But back then, she was a house mother, and she really did plant some seeds that finally came to fruition. I would say that from a business perspective in my career, there's been multiple people who have like seen something in me. Monica Coema, Jessica Hawking, Jason Cortal. He's my boss now. But my biggest career opportunity came from a man named Chad Angle. He Man, that man, like they said, who can lead this project? And he said, Virginia can. And so I did. I went and opened up the new prison up in Madison. I was like a year out of prison myself. And I went to Indiana for 2 months and helped stand up one of our call centers, which thrives today, Madison, Indiana.
It's
And Chad said I
incredible.
could do it. And then he went to another company and brought me along. So I left Televerde for a couple years and I went to this other company and they needed someone to go to Belize to train their outsource provider for 3 weeks. I went. Chad said, Virginia can. I said, okay.
I love that. Everybody
Yeah.
needs an advocate like that.
Everybody needs a Chad.
I love that. Are you still in touch with him?
Oh, absolutely. I love that man.
That's incredible. I love that. Well, that's mainly all of my questions. I
Okay.
really just wanted to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about your background and your journey and your recovery and
Yeah.
what you're doing now. Is there anything else about your journey that you want to talk about or add?
I don't think so, but I just do want to say, Noella, like it is through open-minded people that we can really do some work. And I appreciate your open-mindedness and your teams. I really believe that it's in the telling of our stories that we heal. And I, for one, I know every time I tell my story, it's refreshing and I feel so much better afterwards. And I would ask that the community at large would just give someone the chance to like share their story. You might make a new friend. You never know.